Hello, and welcome to this presentation on virtual interviews provided by the Huntingdon Career Link. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So what is a virtual interview? It is an interview that takes place remotely, often using video conferencing and other online forms of communication platforms. Virtual interviews can also take place over the phone, but it typically is less common than using some type of video conferencing tool. I'll review what some of those video conferencing platforms are a little later in this presentation. So some individuals may be wondering if virtual interviews are kind of a new thing that came about with the COVID-19 pandemic or if they've been around for a while, which virtual interviews have been around for a while. They were becoming more and more popular and more common even before COVID-19, but now COVID-19 has pushed some employers this route for interviewing just due to the social distancing standards and also because of some non-essential businesses being shut down, some of their work sites may be shut down, so this is a way for them to still conduct interviews and hire new employees. In which Korn Ferry, an organizational consulting firm, conducted a survey and found that nearly 75% of executives use real-time video to interview leading candidates for a position, while 50% leverage it to narrow down their applicant pool. So why do employers use virtual interviews? The virtual interview process enables employers to open talent pools while cutting down on travel expenses. This is really true whenever you have out-of-state or international applicants. You don't have to fly those individuals in, or you don't have to maybe reimburse them mileage, or for example, the employer doesn't have to travel to them as well. So that's one option. Another is it allows employers to get a better sense of qualities such as professionalism and body language as compared to doing a regular phone interview. You can't see those and you can't pick up on those in a regular interview over the phone. And it also is time saving. For some employers, they ask for you to do what's called like a pre-recorded interview where you answer certain questions that they've already established, and then they get to go back and watch those pre-recorded interviews to learn what your responses were, and that's also a way for employers to further dwindle down their candidate list to advance those candidates to further rounds of interviewing. So like I mentioned before, I'm going to go over some of the common virtual interviewing platforms. Some of the most common ones are Zoom, Skype, Cisco WebEx, Microsoft Teams, and Google Hangouts. This is not the entire list, but these are the most common video conferencing platforms. If you actually go to the PA CareerLink Huntingdon County Facebook page or our YouTube channel, which is PA CareerLink Huntingdon County, you can view a video on how to access and sign up for some of these programs. Just be careful and mindful. I know some things have come out in the media lately about some of these not being safe, or some hackers have gotten into them. Just be careful whenever you're using the free versions of them due to those recent scams that you may have heard about. Just be careful to not share any personal information over those, such as a social security number, birth date, unless you know that it is a secure site. But they're still okay to just get on to do a virtual interview. Just be careful of the things that you share. So some tips for virtual interviews. First thing, test your technology. You want to check your internet connectivity. So first, just make sure you're connected to the internet, and also make sure you have a strong signal strength. You don't want to make sure that it's weak and it'll cut out in the middle of your interview. Confirm your camera and microphone are working correctly. and download any program that you may need, such as Skype or Zoom, beforehand. And you want to do all of this prior to the day of your interview. That way you're not scrambling trying to get things to work. If maybe something's not working, then you're not scrambling to try to make sure that you have everything up and running before your interview. My suggestion would be, maybe once you schedule the interview, go ahead, download any program that you would need, and then you have it and you can test it out then. And then also the day before or the day of, maybe if your interview's in the afternoon, you can test it in the morning again to make sure that everything is working correctly and you're not trying to scramble before your interview. And I would recommend that you also log on at least 10 to 15 minutes before your interview. That way you're not trying to scramble as well last minute to get on right before your interview. So that way you're on and prepared. And you would do that for an in-person interview as well. You typically arrive early to an interview even when it's in person. So you'll want to do the same even though it's a virtual interview. So another tip is to set the scene and minimize distractions. So first you'll want to determine where you're going to do the interview. If you're doing it in your house, what room you're going to do it in, or if you are at an office, which room you're to be doing the virtual interview in. The room should have optimal lighting, preferably near a window or a blank wall, to ensure that you are the focal point of the conversation, that something's not behind you that the interviewer may look at and not be focused on you. You want to tidy your surroundings. So if you have laundry piled up or if you have stuff sitting around, it can be hard to convince the potential employer that you are organized and that you are detail oriented if that stuff is just laying around, it's not neat, it's not organized. And also eliminate all distractions. So turn off your TV, silence or turn off your phone. I would maybe say leave the phone in a different room. That way you're not even tempted to look at the phone while you're in the middle of your interview. And also, if you're going to be doing the interview at your home, tell your family that you'll be using this room as the designated room for your interview and also the time of your interview, and just ask that you not be disturbed during that time to eliminate any type of distraction. And also, if you have any pets, maybe put them in another room and close the door just to avoid that distraction that sometimes pets can pose as well. Another tip is to sit down prepared. So you'll want to close any unnecessary tabs that you may have open. That way you avoid clicking around during the interview because the interviewer that will be able to see if you're kind of messing around on your computer, and that would give off a negative impression to the interviewer. It'll make you seem that you're not interested. Also, research the company ahead of time and write down notes for reference. So a little bit down further in that slide, a common interview question that you could be asked is what you know about the company or what drew you to apply to that company. That way, even if you don't remember, you can quickly glance down at your notes and refer to. Print out a copy of your resume. That way you have it handy so it can allow you to remember key talking points such as key experience you've had or key education that you may have relevant to the position, any key skills, that sort of thing. And like I said, just be prepared to answer common interview questions. These are just a couple. There are obviously a lot more common interview questions that are asked, but these are just a couple. Why are you interested in working at this company? Some strengths and weaknesses of yours, and why are you looking to leave your current role? And also on the flip side of that, have questions prepared to ask the interviewer. What does a typical day look like, and how would you describe the ideal candidate for this position? Those are just a couple interview questions questions that you can ask the interviewer. That's not the complete list. There are certainly others that you can ask, but that's just examples. Okay, so next you want to make sure that you practice. You don't want to memorize because if you're memorizing, it can seem like you're reading from a script and you can appear to be ingenuine when you're doing so. So just run through questions and answers with family or friends to practice ahead of time. During the COVID-19 virus, you can call them over the phone, or if you have a phone, you can FaceTime them, and they can pretend to be asking you questions while you answer, and then just ask for honest feedback on how you're doing so that way you can get better before your real interview. And just be clear and concise with your answers and keep it simple. Don't feel like you must give a long-winded answer if the question doesn't require it. You don't need to drag out the answers unless a question requires an in-depth answer. And just preparation is key. You would want to go in prepared for a normal interview in person, so the same would apply to virtual interviews as well. The next tip is to monitor your body language. So you'll want to make sure that you sit up straight. So don't slouch over in your chair. Also, try not to cross your arms. This can give off a negative impression sometimes that you're not being welcoming or that you're not interested in what you're doing. So try not to cross your arms. Maybe keep your hands on your lap or on the desk in front of you. Also, try not to yawn or fidget. Make sure you smile. This will give off a positive vibe to the interviewer. Also, don't chew gum, eat, or drink. You can keep a bottle of water handy just in case you would start to cough or something like that where you need kind of to quick clear your throat. Just don't have like a cup of coffee sitting there that you casually sip at. That can be a distraction during your interview. Also, keep the camera at eye level. Keep focus on the camera while you're talking and answering questions, not on the image of the interviewer. Research shows employers are more likely to remember what you said if you maintain direct eye contact. So dress the part. You would dress as you would for an in-person interview. So that can include for women, pencil skirts, blouses, button-down shirts, blazers, dress pants, dresses, sweaters. Just try to be mindful of the jewelry that you wear. You don't want it to be a distraction, so try to limit the jewelry that you do wear. Try not to make them big hoop earrings. They're studs or something small. And then also for men, dress pants, button-down shirts, polos, jackets. If you do wear a tie, try to keep it simple. Don't try to wear an obnoxious or loud tie because that can be a distraction and take away from the interview itself. Professional clothing will show that you're serious about the position you're interviewing for. And like I mentioned with the tie, to keep it simple, also with the attire, just to try to avoid bright colors and patterns. Professional attire can make you feel more prepared and confident in yourself for the interview. Next, make a connection. Just kind of have some small talk with the person that's interviewing you. Making a connection is a big part of an interview. Just ask the interviewer about their experience with virtual interviews, or talk about a common interest. Everyone says talk about the weather, so that could be something to talk about as well. And just thank the interviewer for their time at the conclusion of the interview. Making this connection will make you stand out from other candidates that they may be interviewing for the same position. And just be yourself. Be expressive when answering questions. It will be hard since it's not in person for the person interviewing you to pick up on your enthusiasm for the position. So just try to be expressive when you're answering their questions. The recruiter or interviewer will determine if you would be a good fit for the organization. And immediately follow up. So you want to send a thank you email within 24 hours of your interview. And this just shows that you value their time that they spent interviewing you. And make sure you send a thank you to all that were in the interview. Sometimes there may be more than one. If you don't have the emails of everybody that was in the interview, whoever you email the thank you to, just ask if they would kindly forward on your appreciation and your thanks for all of their time. This will set you apart from other applicants as well, showing that you value their time. They'll kind of keep that in their memory, so they'll remember that and remember you.